Look at this one. This is a talk in Quran between Prophet Ibrahim and Allah. It's a very interesting one. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. وَإِذْ قَالَ إِبْرَاهِيمُ رَبِّي أَرِينِي كَيْفَ تُحْيِي الْمَوْتَى. So Ibrahim said to God, "Oh my sustainer, I want to know how do you resurrect the dead?" Okay, that's the question. Then the answer comes, قَالَ أَوَلَمْ تُؤْمِنْ. That's from Allah. It says, "Don't you believe that I could do that?" His answer, قَالَ بَلَى. Sure, I know, I believe. قَالَ بَلَى وَلَكِنْ لِيَطْمَئِنَّ الْقَلْبِ. However, I want my heart to be completely satisfied, reach certainty, reach what we call yaqeen. That yaqeen, we're going to call this haqq al-yaqeen, that degree of yaqeen, the certainty, okay? So that's what he says. Then the rest come from Allah. He says, قَالَ فَخُذْ أَرْبَعَةً مِنَ الطَّيْرِ. Take 4 birds, فَسُرْهُنَّ إِلَيْكَ ثُمَّ اجْعَلَ عَلَى كُلِّ جَبَلٍ مِنْهُنَّ جُزْءًا. So get them, train them, cut them into the pieces, put them on the top of كل جبل. It doesn't say how many mountains. It says put on the top of mountain. Okay. منهن جزء means that it was cut into the pieces. Put the pieces there. Okay. Because the juz'un is not like the bird hole. The bird is trained and then cut into the pieces. Now put in a mountain. He did it. And then he says ثم يأتيك سعيا واعلموا يأتينك سعيا واعلم أن الله عزيز حكيم. So then call them to yourself. They did it, obviously, you know, it happened. We'll assume it happened, the rest. So, and the birds, those pieces of, you know, meats come together as a form, as a whole live bird and came to him. Okay. Nice question. It's really interesting. This is the Prophet Ibrahim, that's Khalilullah, talking to Allah. And he's asking Allah for evidence. Though he talks to Allah, he believes that, and he asks Allah to give evidence. Allah did not say, you know, since I am all powerful, I could do it. You know, why you need that? So in other words, most of the time, like when my kids go to Islamic school and they ask some questions that challenge the teacher will say, Astaghfirullah, Astaghfirullah, why are you thinking that way? So in other words, you're forbidden to even ask questions. But you see, actually in a Quranic context, there is really no forbidden question. And I remember Jeffrey Long, in a U.S. mathematician, he became Muslim. He's published several books. I remember one of his books, the title is Even Angels Ask. Even Angels Ask, because he took it from the Quran, that the angels were asking Allah, why would you create those corrupted beings that are going to cause all this trouble on the earth? So the angels were asking questions. So which means there is absolutely nothing wrong in asking questions if the purpose is to learn something. If the purpose is to really have the ego show, is not good and useful at all to engage in debate. Therefore, I don't see there's any benefit in engaging in debate on religious matter. Because debate most of the time is the show of ego, who knows better. So, and when it comes to show of ego, it's better to say, okay, if your purpose is to really show that you know better, okay, you know better, I don't know anything, so let's finish it. Okay? So it really does not help to engage in debate. Yes?
I was going to just ask the question that obviously because we're in a culture where everybody's trying to prove they've got the better, they've got the solution, they're right. How do we stop our children falling into that? Because we're all leaders in Islamic schools and settings, and that's something that we see is that people say, parents say, oh, that's self-confidence to be able to stand up and argue your point, even if you're wrong. So how do we direct the young people and the children to sort of, you know, that at some point just to say, you know, from Islam we say, no, this is how Allah decreed it at some point, and you have to accept it.
Again, I think if the question is for sake of knowing something, there should be no limit to that. There should be no prohibition to that. But if the question is like, well, my kids as well, and they ask a question, if I see it's not at their level, I say, you need to wait a little bit to really discuss this question. And I give an example and say, is it okay if I tell you, you know, high school math now, would you understand? He said, no, okay, he said, that's like in high school math. There's an answer to that, but I'm not sure you're at the level you can understand it. Put it aside, we can discuss later on as you start to really... So if there are certain questions that are not proper at the age level, I think you should still need to provide a reasonable explanation why you don't want to discuss that. But if the question is really just because they want to know, if they heard, they read online, they have a doubt, I think you should let them to express their skepticism fully and genuinely. Because to just forbid them not to ask questions because they might harm the others is, I think that's one way. It's like when teachers feel they're not in a position to answer. So I will say then it's better for the teachers to say, let's discuss the next class. So I will go and explore, and you will go and explore that and bring and discuss next class. So you can do that if you feel you're not ready. Which, you know, but I think otherwise, all questions should be welcome in the classroom setting. And actually, we should encourage them to question. Yes. Because asking questions shows the desire to know something. So, and if they are really asking, you know, if they are not asking, it's like you have to do force feeding. That doesn't really work.
They'll be passive.
So, because it's like the desire is necessary for the learning. So asking is a sign of the desire for learning, because you cannot force learning on human beings. You might be able to do the force feeding to the body, but you can't really do force feeding to the heart. You can only make them, you know, to be never be believer, because you can force them. So therefore, it has the desire, the will has to be there. Okay. Now again, so a few questions here. Question number one, if even Prophet Ibrahim asked question, that means we can ask question to anyone, including Allah, right? But you see here, Prophet Ibrahim was asking for a miracle, right? Essentially. First, can we also directly talk to Allah? Second, if we can talk to Allah, can we ask for a miracle? Or is this something is completely, you know, relevant to the Prophet and has nothing to do with us, and it's just an historical story that mentioned in the Quran? What would you say?
It's karama for...
Is it karama? No, not karama. It's a mu'jiza, a miracle, right?
Yeah, mu'jiza for the Prophet.
Prophet, yes. But can we have something similar or not?
Yes, we can ask.
We can?
Yes.
Have okay. Then yeah. So can you talk to God?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah. The Salah is that. Right?
Okay.
Absolutely.
If you can talk to God, what is God's language?
My language.
Your language.
What language?
My language.
Yeah.
Really? What was the last time you talked to God?
In Salah.
What was it? What was it? We're praying. Really? Was it one-way talk or two-way? Was there any response? could there be any response from God to you?
Fatiha, yes, it has two. Hamadan Ya'ni, it's not we are our daily life. Some things happen, you know, we answer or
Yeah.
this happened. You realize that there is a message.
Does God talk to only believers, or does He talk to everyone? Everyone? Even atheists?
Mikrofonlar lütfen.
Okay, yeah, I want to talk to you saying that turn on your mic, please. So does God talk to believers only, or does He talk to everyone? Everyone?
Allah talks
but
to
you said the
everyone.
prayer is a talk, and those who do not pray means God does not talk to them.
Well, through dua, like supplication, not
But
just through.
you know, they don't make it dua. Let's say they are non-believers. So does God talk to them?
Everything and they're gonna.
May I share one thing? May I share one thing?
Sorry?
May I share one thing
Yeah,
about
of course,
this thing?
Of course.
I met a guy, young boy, and he was in Pakistan doing 1 year course with Dr. Israr Ahmad, rahmatullah. So he was from US, and he said that I had no idea about religion or anything, and I actually did not believe in any religion. But there was one thing that before going for and he used to work in a bank, credit card department, and he said that I just would stand in front of my door before leaving for my office, and I would say that I don't know whether you exist or not or what, but if you do, so then show me.
Show me a sign.
And he said this was my routine. And then I said, I don't know, for somehow one of my friends there in my area, he came across and he told me that there's a guy from Pakistan, Dr. Israr Ahmad, he's a scholar, and he's around and he is going to come to our community and he's going to give a lecture. And he said that I went and I listened, and that is how my journey began. And then I followed him. I tried to find about him once he left Pakistan. Then I learned that he was in Syria or Lebanon trying to learn Arabic. So that is how when you talk to God, he was a non-believer, and he talked to God and the God responded.
Very good. So, but do you think that's an exceptional or that's common for everyone?
If it comes from here, I think it's common.
Okay, so you know you're saying that if you really want to talk to God, God will come. But if I don't want to talk to God, do you think you're going to talk to me?
Yes.
Well, I think yes.
How? How?
Science.
See, so that's the part. It's actually, you know, this is the main things that we're going to talk about. What is God's language? How God communicate with us, and how we can communicate with Him. So that's really the essential.
إذا سألك عبادي عني فإني قريب أجيب دعوة الداعي.
But how would you know He's قريب to you, and how would you talk to Him? That's the part. And wherever you go, He's with you. But question here, we live in a secular world in which that we think He's far beyond the universe, if even He exists. Question here, how can we see and feel His presence everywhere? That we can, to the level, we can start to communicate to Him. That's the key part. So how, and we need to first and foremost know what is the language He's using, what is the means of communication He's using to communicate to us. The book on the left, if I haven't seen that, Francis Collins, he was the head of NIH in US for many years. He was the head of the Genome Projects. It's one of really, really great book. He was, the life of Francis Collins himself is very interesting. He was Christian guy, then he went through secular education, became atheist. And as he studied DNA and genomes, he realized this cannot happen by itself. He came back to Christianity, though you will see that his questions that caused him to left Christianity was still there, but he find a way, his answers is like, okay, I know Trinity doesn't make sense, but he says that Trinity, that's something that go beyond your mind, so therefore I'm not going to question this because I have to submit to something that can happen by itself. But the book is really, really good one. It's very, very good one, except like it's trying to inject some nonsense Christians, idea there that you can easily figure out that, but the rest is really good. He called the DNA, he calls this 4 letters, A, G, C, T, 4 molecules, with which that the genes is written. He called this is the language of God. Is he right?
It's one.
Oh, one of them. Okay, it's one of them. So then what is the other? What is like, I mean, what are other languages?
Ibtila, the blessings, anything that happens with us, this is a sign, this is the language, how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spoke.
Okay, so in a way that basically we need to understand what is the language and what is the word. So basically, based on that, we can define that. So essentially, we'll try to see what is the language and how this happened from the very first ayah that revealed in Surah Al-Alaq. Remember, the Prophet, peace be upon him, used to go to which mountain? Mountain Hira. The mountain Nur, actually, the cave of Hira, right? So he would spend sometimes days, you know, and stay there and live there at night. So I really was curious about it. I don't know whether you did any search and curious about it. I was curious, what was he doing before Islam? What would you do there? You go on the top of mountains, stay day and night, not one time, many, many times. What do you think he was doing there?
He wanted peace and quiet in order to reflect. I think he was.
But what was the thing he was reflecting
on?
On
The signs he was seeing, different signs he was seeing. God was talking to him using the signs.
No, but remember the talking happened after the revelation, right?
No, before the revelation.
Yeah, and that's part is debatable a little bit, but if you know, because at least there was no revelation at that time, so he had a question, I guess, right? Yes.
He was الحديث كان يقضي أيامه في الغار يتحنف يعني بمعنى طريقة الحنيفية يعني the same way that Ibrahim عليه السلام يعني has done. He was by Allah led to the same way of prayer.
But
asking the universe about the Creator.
While we look at the Prophet Ibrahim in the Quran, he is really a role model with things that for education is one of the best figures that you can get in the Quran. The way that Prophet Ibrahim will do is very much thinking, questioning type of thing to explore, to find out that. Like in a way, you will look at the sun, oh, this is my God. The sun said, no, there can't be that. So in a sense that you see that he was really extremely deeply thinking and questioning, you know, and try to find it out through exploring that. So when I look at that, I will say, okay, what was the Prophet thinking in this case? So if he followed the prophetic, the Abrahamic path, that means he was reflecting, contemplating on some big questions. But what do you think was the question he might have thought about it when he was there?
His purpose. His
Purpose.
Yes.
So he was thinking in terms of, you know, what is happening? What is the whole meaning behind everything? Then who is behind this? You know, how can I find him? How can I connect to him? So essentially, you can see that basically he had the desire, you know, to just really go beyond this daily nonsense things that people through which seek satisfaction. You know, and it kind of reminds me of the opposite guy, that's Nietzsche. So when Nietzsche left the university and went and lived on top of mountain, he was like looking at the people and saying, look, you know, you as a human have enormous potential. How would you find satisfaction in those trivia things, in possession, little pleasure? You know, you go do this and that, and you know, like modern time, if you will say, with the, you know, sharing on social media, those things cannot really satisfy you as a human being. You're not created for such nonsense, small. He will call it small pleasure. He says that you're too big to be satisfied with those small little pleasures. He completely left them behind. So when you look at, you see the Prophet, peace be upon him, he was actually not really living like those who people live in an ordinary and try to seek satisfaction with the worldly life. He was thinking about big questions, looking about the big meaning behind everything. And to me, when I look at the very first ayah reveal, I said there has to be a connection between those ayah and between what the Prophet had in mind, what he was really trying to know. Because when you look at the very first ayah reveal, it says, it seems like the angel came, Jibreel, and says, Iqra, remember? And it says Iqra, and the story goes that he repeated Iqra 3 times. And I think there must be hikmah, wisdom behind that as well. Why 3 times? Now we know Prophet's response was, I don't know how to read. Obviously it means it wasn't about, reading something as if you're literate. He was illiterate. But then if someone say, I don't know how to read, what would you do? You have to teach how to read first, then show what to read, right? So actually, if you look at those ayah, the ayah we teach will tell you what to read and will tell you how to read as well, what is the language. So the ayah says, اقرأ باسم ربك الذي خلق. Read in the name of God who creates. So the very first thing here is, first of all, اقرأ باسم ربك الذي خلق. ربك, which basically means, look yourself and see the creator that sustains you. That creator is the one who creates everything. See, which means that reading the self and understanding that the sustainer is the one that sustains you, is your Rabbik, that is the key for reading. Iqra bi'ismi Rabbik. Bi'ismi Rabbik basically means here, if I understand that it's not my power to move, it's not my brain to basically make me to talk. If I understand it is God making me to talk, to walk, and to do everything, means He's my sustainer, I'm like a baby, that means that is the essential part to see the connection between me and my Creator. And that's the key for unlocking the truth of everything. So therefore it says, اقرأ باسم ربك الذي خلق. Second one here says, الذي خلق, means everything that happened to you is being created. They are the creation. They are not the product of cause and effect. It's not causation. Okay, so we need to look at, remember we said our first day, the conclusion was there is no causation, there is only creation. So you see here is actually saying that you need to look at everything beyond the veil of causation. You need to, in everything's creation, that there is creator first within you, sustain you, and then outside you create everything. الذي خلق الإنسان من علق. Then look at yourself as a human being. Read yourself. Now you learn the language, and then you start to read. When you start to read, it seems like the very first thing is to read yourself. خلق الإنسان من علق. So you reflect on yourself and see how you have been created, in which that you had absolutely no way to claim that you are owning your body. You have your own power to sustain your life. Because if you look at your story, you see that you were just a piece of cloth. How have you been created from that, given the body, given the mind, and then now you think that you are something. Okay? خلق الإنسان من علق اقرأ وربك الأكرم. Now once you read that way, what will you understand? You understand everything are just the gift of the generous one to you. Why? Because He's Kareem. Iqra wa rabbukal akram. He is the one very generous. That everything that means given to you are the gift to you. Then what is the greatest gift? Allazi allama bil qalam allama al insana ma lam ya'lam. Oh, the greatest gift that given to human is the gift of knowledge, the gift of wisdom, the gift of understanding. That's what makes human to be above angels even, okay? And that's also given by God. But the ayah, the surah continues, it says that كَلَّا إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَيَتْغَى. Verily, human being, يَتْغَى means تَغِي, means rebellious. كَلَّا إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَيَتْغَى. They are actually rebellious, transgress. Why? أَنْ رَاءَهُ أَسْتَغْنَى. Means they see themselves self-sufficient, means thinks about self-confidence, thinks about self-confidence, thinks about that you're enough, you could do it yourself. But then it says, once you see yourself in that way, you become rebellious. Why do you need God? If you have your own power, if it's your intelligence, if it's your knowledge, then in this case, basically, you could go and do it. Then why you need God? Okay, so and therefore, it's basically what really caused that make you to go to Tugyan, to make taghi, that you become rebellious, is your misperception of that you have the power. Remember, even the emphasis in Western secular culture of power, when they say knowledge is power. Really? Yes. Why? Because this is all power-central civilization, the purpose to gain power, to control, and to reach the pleasure, to maximize pleasure. But actually, from the Quranic perspective, knowledge is hikmah. That you're supposed to gain knowledge not for sake of power or pleasure or money, for sake of understanding the truth, the wisdom behind everything. So the very intention is different. You're not gonna see you are powerful. The more what I say is basically, you're not gonna see you are really knowledgeable. The more knowledge you get, the more you feel you are ignorant.
Subhanallah, so, and that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّمَا يَخْشَى اللَّهُ مِنْ عِبَادِهِ الْعُلَمَاءِ.
Exactly. Because why? Because you understand. The more you understand, the more you will have khushu and you have khawf in terms of really knowing your limits rather than rebellion against God. Okay? Because again, remember Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam, when he was asked to submit, what was his response? He says, إِذْ قَالَ لَهُ أَسْلِمْ. Because Islam is all about submission. Islam means submission. When Prophet Ibrahim was asked to submit, what was his response? The Quran says, إِذْ قَالَ لَهُ الْأَسْلِمْ قَالَ أَسْلَمْتُ لِرَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ. Why he said قَالَ أَسْلَمْتُ لِرَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ لَيْسَ قَالَ أَسْلَمْتُ لَكَ or قَالَ أَسْلَمْتُ لَهُ. Why he says لِرَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ? Why?
That it's known.
Because he basically saying everything in the universe submit to him. Who am I who will not submit? Because if he's a Rabb al-Alameen, that means everything in creation submit to him. Who am I who's not going to submit that?
And why he's asking to submit? Who am I to deny?
Exactly.
Reject such an invitation?
Because once you realize everything in the universe submit, you will, it's out of question. Who are you? You're going to rebel. So, which means the reason you rebel, because once you see other somehow they self-sufficient, they not submit, you might gain somehow power from them, say I do not submit. So therefore his response there means that once we have the realization that everything in the universe submit to Allah, as Quran says that willingly or unwillingly, everything submit to Allah. There is no way to not submit it. But only people, they claim that they are rebellious, they are not submitted, but actually it's not possible. Now, in that case, what we're going to try to do, basically we try to, from this ayah, Surah Al-Alaq, we try to see how we can decode the language and we can see how we can read the universe and connect and communicate with Creator based on this language. Now, again, if there is a language in which that God communicates to us, what is the easiest, what is the, how many letters we have in Arabic alphabet? 26. 26. In English? 28 in Arabic. English 26, right? 26. Yeah. In Turkish they add some more. How many we have? 29, right? In Turkish, because there's no Turkish alphabet, it's a Latin, but they just made it up as Turkish because they didn't like the Arabic ones. Otherwise, it's not Turkish, it's Latin alphabet actually. They had to just add some because Atatürk did not like it. So he wanted to disconnect believer or Turkish people from Quran. So, and one of the things he had is to basically change the alphabet. Before in Ottoman Empire, we used to have the Arabic alphabet, but he removed that. He removed that intentionally. So, how many letters do you think that will be in the alphabet of the language of the universe for human being to really communicate with God? So, actually, I say it should be very simple, in which that everyone can learn. If you're going to have a language that is extremely simple, how many letters you can have in this language? How many letters you can have it? It is actually, you could have one single letter. I say the language of the universe consists of one single letter alone. If you learn that, that's sufficient. What is that letter? Oh, I, Ana, I, that's all. If you know, remember you say, I know that, I am this I, if you know what is the I, that's enough for you to know everything. So that's one. So knowing the self. So the knowledge of the self is basically the alphabet that we need to learn to read the universe. So, and therefore it's extremely essential to really know that. Now Nursi published a 30th word. The first part is about the self, ana, and the second part is about zarra, that's atoms. And it's very interesting, he put both of them in the same word, and there must be some wisdom behind that connection between them. But in one way, ana is kind of the building block of what makes human, and dharra, atoms, is the building block of the universe. So as you read yourself, you can actually read the universe as well. So, and therefore he looked at those two as essential, things in the same, topic, same chapter, and have discussion on that. So therefore,
Hocam, sorry, I think it's very linked to the sentence that he had. Like, actually, there are two big tawuts in the universe. Tawut, a word used by Quran, is kind of yeah, I don't know, it's English, yeah, the tawut. The first one is tabi'ah, the nature itself, and the second one is human eye. So if you go to the nature from the deepest way, which is all about the atoms, you can actually deal with it. And the second one is basically ana, which is I-ness. So I think it's really interesting to combine it in one piece and write it to kind of collapse its rootness, from the very basic level.
Very good. It's very true. We're going to come to them. I see, it's like some eye are, following sleep's eyes. So I'm getting some questions for you, okay? So be ready for that, okay? So because since I have to get close and make sure everyone's awake, right? Okay, so the question we have is basically, we try to really answer the simple question, who are you, okay? And there's some question here really I prepared to see what you think on that one. So this is from Yunus Emre. It's a very nice one, it's really amazing. In Turkish, this is ilim bilmektir, ilim kendin bilmektir, sen kendini bilmezsen bu nice okumaktır. Which basically means, learning is knowing yourself. If you don't know yourself, what is the point of learning? Right? Is he right? Do you agree with him? Okay, let's see. Now, tell me, this was actually the title of a TV show in one of well-known Islamic channel in Turkey. I'm not going to mention the name of it. And this is the one. Is this correct or not? Is this correct or not? And if not correct, can you suggest how to correct it? Yes? Is this correct? Anything wrong with this statement?
Yes, it's problematic because you are, yes,
so,
you are not the help, Allah is the help.
Okay. So how would you correct that?
If you are helpless, turn to Allah for help.
Okay. Okay. But how would you rephrase it to show that is completely wrong?
You are never helpless. Allah is always there for you.
That's good. Any other suggestion? How we could correct that? Yes.
Yes, we're not helpless because we have this year and here we have the will. There are certain things that we don't have any say or choice in them, but there are things that we take choice of them, and we are held responsible for our choices.
So you know, you're saying that just accept your fact you could be helpless. That's what you're saying?
Yes, you can't be helpless.
You can be helpless.
You have.
Okay. She's saying you can be helpless.
You can. You cannot be helpless.
Oh, you can't be helpless.
Because you have the choice to take actions, and then Allah will either reward you if you take the right choice, or you will be held responsible for whatever choices you make in life.
But let's say if you have a certain problem that you seek the answer or solution and you find there is absolutely no solution to that, don't you feel you're helpless now?
Okay, in this case, you will be supported by Allah. When you have this total submission, there's dua. اللهم إني برئت من حولي وقوتي ولجأت إلى حولك وقوتك. I don't have any power. I don't have any حول, any قوة. I'm seeking that from you, Allah. So you won't feel helpless.
Okay. How much when you don't feel any helpless, do you think that there is a stage in which you say, yeah, I can handle myself, I don't need help?
No.
No?
No.
So would you say you're always helpless or sometimes helpless?
You're not helpless.
Because all we are Muslims in this world.
You're seeking Allah's
always
support.
seeking Allah help, therefore you always
even
have
if
the help.
Hocam, because I think all we are Muslims in this room, we are not thinking and taking the issue from the ontological way and the natural point of view, but we are directly pointing out Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If I'm helpless, of course I'm not helpless because Allah is there, but Necati Hoca is asking about more kind of ontological base and human nature and human fitra point of view. We are all helpless. So
yeah, in terms of ourselves, we are helpless, right?
Yes. We have weakness.
So to understand that is in a way that it's basically the way I correct that when I say this.
Okay.
Yeah. Right?
Yes.
So which means
وخلق الإنسان ضعيفا.
So which means that if you think that you have the power and you can handle your affair, whatever it will be, that means you sooner or later understand that you're powerless because you don't have any power for anything. So it's absolute essential to understand that we innately need Allah. It's not like, you know, when people say, why do we pray? You know, why Allah? It's not that Allah needs your prayer. You need the prayer because you don't have any power. What could you do? It's like, you know, asking a baby, why do you cry? What can I do? Because I don't have power to get what I need. Okay?
It just reminds me, subhanAllah, of the beautiful dua. Allahumma rahmataka arju, fala takilni ila nafsi tarfata ayn. That's exactly it.
Can you translate it?
Oh Allah, your mercy I seek. Do not leave me alone to take care of my affairs, even for the blink of an eye.
Exactly. And Rawa Staghna, right? Which means that you don't want to see yourself that you're sufficient, that you can handle yourself. Okay? So in this case, basically, one of very essential, you know, brainwashing is happening in everywhere in schools. This concept with the self-help is self-confidence. Okay, so in that case, basically, you know, we see that everywhere we say, oh, it's important that we help students develop self-confidence by telling them, believe in yourself, that you could do it. You know, you're intelligent. You know, when they, let's say, succeed in exam, praise them and as if they did themselves. So in a sense, we think that it's really a very, very secular, you know, ideology based of igniting the anani in human being and making them to feel they really can be self-sufficient, they don't need God. So therefore, we think it's essential to move from the concept of self-confidence to God confidence. That rather than telling them you could do it, you have the power, to say you have no power, you can't do it yourself, you need God, you need God for everything. So in this case, yes, once you rely on God, that's what we call it tawakkul, that you can actually have confidence that because God is all powerful. And look, those are the type of books. Unfortunately, I read hundreds of them actually, And I was thinking, they're really telling something great. I was thinking, those are the books is motivating me. I'm confessing that. Until when I start to work on those harfi and ismi, I realized those are really very poisonous. In a way that, yes, Tony Robbins is one of my favorite authors, when I read it, like, this guys make you to walk over the fire and claim really? I mean, that's very, but the interesting part, you read his life, he couldn't manage on his own life. You have another guy, this Canadian guy is very famous, what was his name, the psychologist.
Jordan Peterson.
Huh?
Jordan Peterson?
Jordan Peterson is an amazing guy as well. He came up with the 12 rules for a good life. Yeah. So I like, and then last year when I went to US, I found out that he says 12 more rules. I read at the beginning of the book, I was completely shocked. I read that the guy is talking about someone that who's drug addicted, who went to Russia, had all kind of thing. I was like, who is it? And he said, it's me. I was like, you're writing books and claiming helping the millions to manage their life. You don't know how to manage your own life. You have completely corrupted, trash type of life. Robbins has a kind of similar as well. If you go and read his life, it's amazing. Those guys really is kind of there, motivate everyone, guide everyone. But when it comes to their own life, their own affair, they fail to really practice what they preach to others. Then I say, this is an evidence to manage yourself, to correct yourself is way difficult than to correct the millions of other people. And actually, I reached to the level I say, I teach MBA, so basically MBA is like about those, CEO come and how we're going to be a great manager. I say, look, I teach with a different perspective in MBA. I say, the most difficult management job ever in the world is managing yourself. Say if you can actually benefit from economics to learn how you can manage yourself, be a really, let's say, a good human with optimization that we teach in economics, I say you can manage any company you want. But I say I haven't seen any single person who never regrets about their life in a way that say, I could have done better. But basically, which means that it's not easy to really manage your life. It's very, very
And I think, Hojam, it's like a collapse of an illusion. Because you make that balloon bigger and bigger. I am this, I am that, I'm so powerful, I'm like that. And then, in one atom come inside your body in pandemic, we saw it. Like all these illusions become, traumatically come back to you. Even they knock so many suicides and other stuff.
So I have a question though.
Yes.
I understand the negativity from some of this stuff, but there's a lot of kids today, people, right? And they feel in themselves, I'm not valuable. I don't have anything. I can't do this. And everyone needs a little push, right? So to completely say that, if you can go back to the previous slide, I think you have it there. Self-confidence, right? I'm not saying it in a way of, I can do it on myself thing. It's more like to push them, not even push them, to make them realize that yes, you can do certain things, you can overcome certain hurdles, right? So for me it's a gray area. Everything is with the help of Allah, absolutely. But again, to completely go the other way and say no, there's no such thing as self-confidence. Maybe I'm not understanding this right. Correct me, please. Right? To say no, we completely take away the notion of self-confidence. I think it's going the other side. I think somewhere in the middle is where, I don't know. Again, help me out. Help me.
I think, may God help you, right? So basically, I really came to the point that the self-confidence has to be completely removed. And actually, I was at the conference, I told you, I published in a paper on this one. There was one of a very well-known theory on this one, self-determination theory. The self-determination theory says there are three essential human needs. The first one, it says basically autonomy. The second one, it says competence. And the third one, it says relatedness. And it says human has to have those three to really unleash their potential. And this theory has been around for a long time. So I was there were over 1,000 people joined that conference, and those who had the initial idea, they were there as well. It was in Florida. So, and actually I presented another theory completely opposite that one. And I didn't mind to really tell them, even to say, look, you look this way, but I can look at that way. And there was some Christians, participants, they came to me, they said, look, we have the same thing in Christianity as well. It's not about Islam only. The theory, I call it self-realization theory. I call it self-realization theory, not self-determination. I said that it's really essential that you realize who you are, what is your essence. And your essence in this regard is absolute impotence, poverty. It's not power and possession. That you're contingent being. Like the shadow depend on the origin. You depend on God every moment for everything. That's your reality. So in this case, that you cannot deny this reality and tell the people as if they are self-sufficient, they could do and handle their things. But having said that, I 100% agree that confidence is absolutely important. So I'm not saying you should remove the confidence. The confidence has to be there. The only thing we're replacing, we're not removing altogether. We're just saying remove the self. Replace with God and have confidence. I'll give you an example. Go look at it if you haven't seen that one. A historian, a Western historian, a non-Muslim historian, he is telling the stories. On YouTube is one of really viral one. As he's telling the story of Khalid bin Walid. Have you saw this one?
Yeah. Yes.
See, in that story, the guys are telling the story and saying, look, those is few, Bedouin from a desert and coming and going and challenge to do two well-established civilization countries. One is a Persian one is a Roman. And fighting against both of them, and so both will actually work together, but they cannot defeat these guys with those few thousands other Bedouin there. And he was saying, what is that? What is the secret of the success? And the guy is almost like crying in telling how confident they were, and in which that when Khalid bin Walid made a promise, if he defeats those two enemies, he's going to make Umrah. And he did fulfill his promise and went and overnight with the horse and did Umrah and came back. The guy was amazed. How can happen? But I wasn't amazed. Why? Because he said they had the God confidence. That's the God confidence. You could never do with the self-confidence something at all. If it was the self-confidence, look, this is Persian, Roman, who we are. How can we fight against them? Let's be reasonable. Let's just run away. He didn't do that. So I think that's in this regard is when we say replace with God confidence, we are not saying that make them to lose their confidence. Actually give them the highest possible confidence. Which means they should have confidence much more than the confidence people get from, let's say, Tony Robbins when they leave that.
Brother, if I may maybe, I really understand your question because I've got two kids of my own. I think the thing is with kids, it's difficult to sit down and say, anything you achieve is not your achievement. It's difficult for them, the concept, because they work hard and they're being told in the school, well done, good job, and so on and so forth. But I think the thing is, it starts with us as parents, how we deal with things on a daily basis and how we respond to events that happen, and they just copy really, and they just see us as an example in front of them, to be honest. If we have an achievement at work here and there, and if we can openly state, Alhamdulillah, this is due to Allah, if we praise Him, if we are outwardly thankful, and we can outwardly say, because I think the mistake that we do most of the time as parents is we just do these things secretly or inwardly ourselves. But if we can do them outwardly and saying praise to Allah, make a 2 rakat of shukr and say due to you this has and if we teach our kids that prayer, for example, salah, is not a duty, it's just a conversation with your Creator, with your Lord. He invites you to meet Him, to have a conversation with Him. And if we really teach our kids that these salahs, they are opportunities to exclaim our neediness, to our God, and that our power actually lies within, or is embedded within, our acknowledgement of our poverty, and that our richness is embedded within our acknowledgement of, you know, our neediness. I think that's the key point. But we have to do these things outwardly. We have to exclaim them ourselves to the Creator, and then the kids will see it and they will understand what that means, basically, you know, because they see us as powerful in front of them. We are the parents. In their eyes, we can do anything. We can solve all the problems. In their eyes, it's like that, you know. They come to us
until they become teenagers. Actually,
they come to us with their problems. They want us to solve the problems, right? But if they see that we also go to another entity to ask for help, then they will say, oh, that's the ultimate help. It's not the parent, it's, you know.
Yeah. Assalamu alaikum. I just want to make a contribution. I think this God confidence is what brings about the real confidence in you. Remember when in the Battle of Badr, the Muslims were a small number, and yet they defeated this huge army. Reverse was the case when they were bigger in number. In Uhud, they lost. Same thing. During the Battle of Hunain, they had all the best companions, they had the power, they had the alliance, but a small ragtag army defeated them, you know. And so after Badr, I think Allah said, when you threw, it was not you throwing, it was Allah throwing, you know. So these lessons are meant to help our children, you know. We share these lessons with them. For example, I watch these YouTube movies, different cartoon ones with the kids, and we go through it and we look at it as the reason why did they win, and so on and so forth, because they relied on Allah. They did their best, but they also relied on Allah. When they became overconfident, what happened to them? They lost Allah, His arrogance. If you believe you are the one, you are sufficient for yourself, then Allah will show you are not sufficient. So be careful about those things. So if we let our kids know these things early on, we go through these lessons with them, I think they will grow up. And as she said, if we model this behavior, it's about modeling what we expect, the outcomes we expect for our children. If we model it, they understand this.
Brother, we have to balance it out very carefully, though, because if we go ahead and we teach our kids only about those incidents of the, like Uhud and all those stories, and we tell them all of these stories and those great stories where Allah has helped a small number of Muslims and so on and so forth, and if we only teach them these things, what will happen is they will go and they will think they have prayed to Allah, and then something happens and they won't be successful. They will immediately erase everything that they have been taught. They will erase it, and they will think it's all wrong. You know, it's very careful, and we have to balance it out very nicely and carefully, because, you know, we have to also teach them that sometimes we have to go through trials, yes, difficulties, you know, failures, because you know, because these are things that, this is how our potentialities are being enfolded in us, and this is what the Rabb means. Rabb. You know, when we've talked about Rabbil Alameen earlier. Why do we say Rabbil Alameen? I mean, Brother Najati has pointed it out, but I think there is also a very important point there, which is the reason why we say Rabbil Alameen is also because the Rabb means educator, right? The one who educates. But He doesn't educate, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't educate like the secular education nowadays, where the teacher gives you external information and imposes you external information into you. No, Allah does not educate in this way. Allah educates from the inward to the outward. How does that happen? We have lots of potentialities in us, that in our fitrah, that we have been created with. But we don't know most of these potentialities yet, because we haven't lived through them yet. For example, let me give you an example. My parents both are alive. I don't know what it means to lose a parent yet. I don't know the feeling yet, because alhamdulillah, both are still alive, right? I will only know what it means to lose a parent, what kind of feeling that is, what kind, you know, once I have lost them. Yeah. Right? So, but I know that faculty, that latifa is in me, because Allah has created me with it, but I have not been introduced to it yet. And this is what the meaning of Rabb is. We have lots of faculties in us, in our fitrah, but we don't know what they are yet, because we haven't been introduced with them yet. Only if we go through trials, if we go through hardship, this is how Allah introduces us with ourselves. This is what it means to know yourself, you know.
But also we have to be,
I think that's for this one.
And we have to teach our kids that this is the way how life works. and how we can be educated, how Allah educates us.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So basically, it's that this way of looking. It means that we need to present life not as a trail, only as a training.
Training.
So it's essentially that you go through the life, that you're trained through the life in advance. So you have to need to put a proper sense. But I agree.
Just want
the parent side is I agree. The parent side is absolutely essential. But I still think, for teachers, particularly Islamic schools, it's essential that we recognize the self is one of the shirk that people are worshipping in modern time. So is one of taghut that within human beings. So therefore, we reach to the level the narcissism comes from that. So it's essential to kill this Nursi called this a pharaoh inside a human being. That pharaoh has to be tackled down. Otherwise, you get those people when they gain a power and success, they really act like a pharaoh. So we need to make sure we do not feed the pharaoh inside, and therefore all the story in Quran about the pharaoh is about our story inside us. So we need to read those pharaoh story as story of us within us. We have to be careful. If we feed them, they can actually dominate and cause all this problem. You see old pharaoh everywhere now in rise, controlling the society and basically destroying the human potential. So this is when we, through the education, feed this ego. That's how ego start to really grow and grow, turn to pharaoh. So to me, it's essential we really do not feed that. Like we have students become very successful. We have our kids become successful. Yes, you do recognize the success, but we say, be thankful to Allah that you have been blessed with such a great success. See, you're still recognizing the success, but you say you have been blessed with the success, not yours. So you congratulate the person for being blessed with that, not for producing the success. So it's very essential to really make sure that we do not really boost the ego, feed the ego, but we rather recognize the source that is actually a blessing from God. Yes, I think.
Yes, I will share an episode about Ismallah al-Mujib for Jordan lady Bisan al-Baz. She works on explaining the divine names of Allah for the children. I showed it to the students in our school and to my children as well. It explains Ismallah al-Mujib, how, when and where the dua, ijabat al-dua, it happens, and it doesn't happen exactly like what we want. For example, I could pray the whole night to succeed in this exam, and then it might not happen, or for my grandmother not to die, but eventually she died. So she answers the questions that come to the child's mind as growing up, yani, as they grow up and grasp the concept. So inshallah, I'll share the episode. It has translation as well, Arabic, English, and maybe other languages. I'll check it and share it, inshallah.
Very good. Yes.
Just want to build upon what Brother Weiss said. It's more of a practical kind of question. So the way I viewed it, self-confidence, was that it comes down to the definition of the term. So it may be that you're defining self-confidence in a slightly different way to the way he's defined it. So is it a question of terminology and definition, or are you saying that actually we should take this self completely out of the vocabulary when it's used in front of a term like confidence or discipline? So confidence is important, discipline is important. It's important you have confidence in yourself whilst understanding that everything's from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So is it a question of terminology, or is it a question of
I say ideology.
Yeah.
I really see.
Yes, that's the key point.
I really see is the problem, that there is a secular ideology embedded with this concept. I really don't feel, I don't feel confident because we have a tawakkul. And tawakkul is very clear with meaning of God confidence, So and
again, it doesn't have to go your way. It doesn't have to go your way. It doesn't. And Allah will not have to answer all your prayers. We always teach our kids that, alhamdulillah, ask Allah. Allah will give you or Allah will have something better for you. So
Yeah.
there's always that hope, right?
Yeah.
The positivism.
But we're not denying that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who's giving success and confidence and all from Allah. I'm talking about, is this term a term of, is it a technical term of, is it the problem with the term, or is it a problem with the ideology? And you kind of answer that question.
If you redefine the term as like confidence coming from God, can you still say have self-confidence by believing that's from God? That's his question, right?
Yeah.
So, but I think I would say we already have the concepts in terms of tawakkul. Why not using tawakkul? Yeah. So and
I mean, the only reason I'm saying that is because it's become so widely spread.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but again, that's why I'm saying that really to go against it. We go to Barnes and Noble. You see 1/3 of the books is all self-help. So everyone's the books that everyone get it. One of the common ones is self-help. So it's like really fighting against the current. But I think. I feel it's really necessary to bring this issue and try to do something.
We have to redefine all the terms. That's what we're discussing. We have to redefine everything if we want to make an education system based on our worldview. And, we've been talking about the historical context. So in the past, it was according to the Islamic worldview because we had our own terminology. And the secular worldview has its own terminology. So we must redefine everything.
Yeah. And actually, we don't have time. Otherwise, the dua parts, how, what are the type of dua, how the dua work, that's a completely different. You have to address this as well. And Nursi will call that 3 type of dua. The dua qalbi, dua the tongue, qawli, and dua fi'li. That means dua by action. So, and responding dua as well doesn't mean accepting that. But there is no dua without answering, but that doesn't mean it's going to accept because divine wisdom will act accordingly. So, but this all has to be introduced to them. They have to understand within this context. It's not like I'm going to make dua and God's going to give what I want. So, and just to give example, he says like, you're sick, you go to the doctor, you say, give me this medicine. But the doctor's no better than you. So if a doctor give another medicine to you, you should be happy with that because if you trust the doctor, what he gives you is better for you. So I think that's another subject. You can spend time on this as well. But let's go to our main thing. Do we have only how many minutes?
No,
17 minutes, right? I think. Okay, so let's try to see. Again, we said we're going to learn the language. We said basically the alphabet of the language of the universe is the I, the ana. So and Nursi says though ana is one word, one letter. But he says to really understand the ana is extremely difficult because the ana is actually the key to the self is in the locked box there. So you have to unlock the self first, then you can get the key of the ana and unlock the whole universe. Which means you need to understand the self first, then you can understand everything else. Basically, it means you have to go out of the body. Reflect on yourself to understand who am I really? What is my true nature? Is it, do I have really some power given to me by God and that I could use it up to a certain time? Or am I completely powerless? See, those are type of questions that we really ask. Or the answer that we really have it, from that part in Nursi, it says if you truly reflect on yourself, you will understand that you have absolutely no power, ajz mutlaq, absolutely no possession, faqr mutlaq, absolutely no knowledge, jahl mutlaq. So, and you are extremely vulnerable, which means you are very delicate creatures. Okay? Yes.
You said that the first step is knowing
yourself. Yes.
But I think in order to know these, I need to know first the Khaliq. When I know that the Khaliq, that he has the absolute power and I am makhluk, then I'm just talking about the order.
Yeah, I think again we'll see how he's gonna say that you have to know yourself first, then you know the Khaliq, because you know yourself, but then there's something working within you. We say, what is the source? I know I have no power, but I feel I do use power to do something. But if this is not my power, who is the power behind that? What is the power behind that?
Sister,
that's why he took it there.
Sister, I think in order, you can't start off with the mutlaq, because we are limited beings, right? Our brain does not work like that. Our brain cannot grasp the mutlaq, the absolute. We have to start with something limited first, in order to then be able to derive from the limited to the absolute.
I'm not talking about the preschool. I'm not talking I'm gonna start this with the preschool. I'm talking adults.
Yeah, but I think let's look at that first to see after that. We'll see how he explained it. Then you can, if it's not clear or if you still have objection, then we can discuss that. Look at here. So this is what he says. He says basically, you know, if you look at yourself, then you understand the self through it. You can read the universe. And in a way, when you look at yourself, basically he's saying that you are like an infant, like a baby. So remember that everyone, when they grow up, you see as an offense. You say, I'm not a baby. I'm from my kids. I raised, you know, with the blessing of Allah, 6 kids. I think one thing they do is they always, you know, when they grow up, they see as an offense to say you're a baby, right? But actually, Nursi says that we are an infant, and very delicate little baby, okay, in the universe. So it's essential to understand that we are like a crying baby crying for help. Why we're like a baby? Does anyone here feel that you're like a baby? You feel that? So, really? That's why you're crying for help, asking for help, right?
Absolutely.
But you're asking from the wrong source.
No, you ask Allah.
You ask Allah, right? So, how would you prove that human is actually like a baby? I mean, is this exaggeration or is it really true that we're all like a baby?
We're always صافات ويقبضن ما يمسكهن إلا الرحمن. The ayat in Surah Al-Mulk about the birds, where they fly and then they put back their wings. So ما يمسكهن إلا الرحمن. So yeah, and we as humans, we can't get our food, we can't get dressed, we can't do anything unless Allah would allow this.
Very good. So, like feeding, can you feed yourself? Anyone here say I can feed myself? Did you all feed yourself in lunch? Did you? Yes or no? You feed yourself? Really? You think you could feed yourself? No? Has anyone did a spoon feeding to you? I didn't see anyone there out do the spoon feeding. How did you feed yourself? Could you feed yourself? Actually, you cannot feed yourself. Therefore, you have to start with Bismillah. When you start saying Bismillah eating, is a recognition that you can't do yourself, actually. It's not a ritual that you just imitate the prophets. It's a recognition you can feed yourself. So therefore, you have to start with Bismillah, which means you could only, with the power of Allah, actually go and get the spoon and get the food to your tongue, the mouth. And when you go to your stomach as well, you have no power, no control, no knowledge of what is happening after that. It's extremely complicated process because the food has to be digested, has to be break it down into the small pieces and loaded into the cell and has to go to the right place. If basically calcium goes to the eyes, what will happen? It starts to turn into the bone, right? See, it doesn't work. The guy who actually finds the distribution mechanism behind that 2 decades before, he got Nobel Prize. Yeah, he did not invent the process. He just discovered something there. But he got Nobel Prize for that. He found out that basically when the food in the stomachs break it down, every piece is attached certain zip code. Because this distribution, 70 trillion homes or guys, hungry guys waiting for food. And they have a dietary restriction. And it seems like somehow, for some reason, that this evolution provides such an amazing distribution system and came up with the right zip code and actually make sure that everything goes to the right place. You know? So, which basically means there is no single human being could say, I can feed myself. That means we're baby. If you cannot feed yourself, that's our definition of being baby. How about walking? Because that's what the baby is, cannot walk, right? But can you actually walk? Absolutely not. If you understand what it takes really for the body to walk on 2 feet. And by the way, we are only in a secular way animal that walking on two legs, right? But the complicated process, at least on the surface between the brain and the muscles, that let us to walk is extremely difficult, and no one has any idea how it works. Okay, for their own body. That's why Prophet Ibrahim in the Quran, it says, I will not worship anyone and anything, but I worship the one who does the following for me. My God, الذي خلقني وهو يهدين. He's the one who created me, and He's the one who guides me. I'm going to worship Him. And then والذي هو يطعمني ويسقين. When I'm hungry, He is feeding me. When I'm thirsty, He's giving me water. See, He's aware that who is doing that. وإذا مرضت فهو يشفين. When I get sick, He's the one giving me shifa. It's not the medicine giving me shifa. I go to take medicine, but medicine cannot give me shifa. It's Allah giving me shifa. وَالَّذِي يُمِيتُنِي ثُمَّ يُحْيِينِ. He's the one is going to make me die. Then He will resurrect me. See, this is basically, in this case, when you look at this expression, it's very clear that how the Prophet Ibrahim understood himself, and how he understood his relationship to his Creator, and how he described that why he worshipped God alone, he cannot worship anyone else. So He's one creating me, not only creating me, sustaining everything in my life every moment. Why shouldn't I worship Him? Okay? So in this case, it's really essential that we basically, have this understanding of the self, and basically, now this knowledge of the self, how this is going to help us to understand the others. Because once we understand the self, we say this is the alphabet. Then now we're going to use this one to understand everything else. Essentially, when it comes to knowledge, I think Dr. Alparslan yesterday, I assume he explained some things on this ground. Essentially, there are two essential movements, historically. Saying one is knowledge is the knowledge of basically object, that out there you observe or you experimentally, seek and understand it. That's called empiricism and realism. The other one is a rationalism and idealism, in a sense that says this knowledge is a knowledge of minds, that the mind projects its understanding on the universe. So what we are going to say, actually we go somehow beyond empiricism and rationalism. And we, in our model, we put the ana at the center of epistemology. We call like ana-based epistemology, which means that we use the knowledge of the self and try to understand the creation based on what we understand ourselves. Because in Quran, in Surah Al-Rum, it says, أَوَلَمْ يَتَفَكَّرُوا فِي أَنفُسِهِمْ مَا خَلَقَ اللَّهُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضَ وَمَا بَيْنَهُمَا إِلَّا بِالْحَقِّ وَأَجَلٍ مُسَمَّى. Do they not contemplate within themselves? أَوَلَمْ يَتَفَكَّرُوا فِي أَنفُسِهِمْ. So first, actually, in mention, do not reflect on their own nafs, their own self. Then after that it says, مَا خَلَقَ اللَّهُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضَ وَمَا بَيْنَهُمَا إِلَّا بِالْحَقِّ. That means once you reflect on yourself and have the understanding of the self, then you can see and understand the creation outside you. How knowledge of self can help you to understand others. And again, we have other ayahs, وَسَنُورِهِمْ آيَاتِنَا فِي آفَاقِ وَفِي أَنفُسِهِمْ حَتَّى يَتَبَيَّنَ لَهُمْ أَنَّهُ الْحَقُّ. So we're going to show our ayah outside you and within you until everything becomes absolutely clear. Means until you reach the absolute certainty. Okay? So in this case, the question for us, how can you reach certainty? So we say it's basically the certainty through the rationale. We call it this ilm al-yaqeen. The certainty that you gain through empiricism, we call it ayn al-yaqeen. And the certainty that you get through experiential way, we call it as haqq al-yaqeen. Okay? So in that case, the experiential one, that's the ana base. The knowledge of self they use to basically try to reach the certainty on that. Okay? So this is, there is a field called phenomenology. In last, I would say, 3-4 years, that's my most reading is within this area on phenomenology. I discovered very late. So I see phenomenology goes deeper than epistemology. In phenomenology, there is a concept called intuitive evidence. So intuitive evidence is like this. It says, let's say, if I say I have headache, what is the best evidence for me to be convinced I have headache? How can I be sure I have headache?
Be sure or
myself. How can I know absolutely I'm sure there is a headache? It's direct experience of headache, right? But now let's say I feel I have headache, I go to doctor, and the best doctor in the world do all kind of tests and say you are absolutely fine. Who should I believe? Myself or the doctor? Why? But the doctor provided me all kind of empirical evidence, you know. I'm experiencing. So why shouldn't I trust this other knowledge better than my subjective knowledge? Don't we call this personal knowledge a subjective one? And the other one an objective one? If this is an objective and scientific, and they provide it to us, shouldn't you believe in that? Would you believe in that, or would you believe in yourself? Why? Why would you believe in yourself? You will not believe in the doctors.
Because you're experiencing pain.
Oh, because experience is your direct exposure. You don't need to have another evidence. There is absolutely no need for evidence for you. You are absolutely certain if you have headache. Now you can lie, but you know you're lying. But if you experience headache, period, you never look for secondary evidence. Why? Because the experiential evidence, that's in phenomenology, they call intuitive evidence.
So is that haqq al-yaqeen?
That's why I call it haqq al-yaqeen. That's why I call it haqq al-yaqeen. So intuitive evidence is actually a type of evidence that goes beyond and above empirical evidence. And science is all about empirical evidence. It's all about doing, you know, experimentation, observation, and derive the evidence from that, and telling us that, you know, God, you talk about it, but there is no evidence. Which kind of evidence? Empirical evidence. Well, why do you think the evidence is limited to the empirical evidence? Okay, so there could be other type, and phenomenology clearly says there is intuitive evidence that you know as a human intuitively through your human experience and can be universalized through the experience of all other people. Because headache is something fully human experience, and everyone accepts is it true. How do you know it's true? Oh, because it's a common experience of almost all human beings. So, and you look this commonality and you define as a form of knowledge. So in phenomenology, the emphasis on finding the knowledge is a lived experience. Like Husserl is one of the main guys on pure phenomenology. So the idea here is that you focus on your own experience, try to understand it, and then you compare with others to find the universal element. So in this regard, let's say when you look at the creation, you look at beautifully created flower. So the flower is telling you some things. And you, using your knowledge of flower, or painting flower, or drawing a flower, you can easily draw certain message and know for sure, okay, if I actually to get even the picture or painting of this flower, I need to have a sight, a knowledge, will, a power to do that. For sure, there must be knowledge, power behind that flower. Plus, if I use this flower to give to others to show my love for them, for sure, the creator of the flower, by creating this flower, showing his love for us. So in a sense that basically we can drive knowledge based on our personal experience, intuitive experience. So in a sense that, using the self-knowledge is the key to really unlock the secret of the universe, to understand everything else. How we do that, we're going to show an example. Like, let's say you have a knowledge of building a Lego house. So using this knowledge, you know what it takes to build a Lego house. Or you have to have a sight, you have to have a knowledge, you have to have a power. Kids know that. Then now you say, look, a real house and a palace. what it takes for the palace to come into existence. You say, for sure. It takes knowledge and power and will. How do you know? I know from my experiential knowledge. So against that, basically, if you look at the, universe, you can say it's kind of made of the Lego. What are the Lego is atoms. So in this case, if you have experience of building something out of Lego, that you know from experiential knowledge what it takes to build the universe by arranging those elements and atoms in a particular way to produce all variety of type of creation. So that's why I say whoever built a house, when I congratulate them, I say, unfortunately you lose your chance of having any excuse in the hereafter, because if you go through the experience of building house and do not recognize the owner and the builder of the house of the earth and the universe, you have absolutely no excuse in the hereafter, because you know what it takes to build a house. You know from the first-hand experience, and there's absolutely no way for you to seek for excuse and say, I didn't really know. The earth, it requires knowledge and power and wisdom for the earth to come into existence. When you build your little, fake type of house, didn't you compare with the planets as a giant palace with all kind of things? The sun is a lamp there, the moon is the light, a lamp there, and the plants like working in the kitchen, providing you the food. So, you see, you don't have to have a PhD or go to Harvard to really know God. So any human with human experience, using the knowledge of the self, can actually reach God. And therefore, we can find a lot of people, in a way that, like in Bursa, if you've been in Bursa, there's a guy he was really a wali called Somuncu Baba, right? And you go there, you'll see that. So the guy was basically a bakery. He had a bakery house. But he reached to a very high level. How? Because it doesn't matter who you are, what you do. You can use the experiential knowledge to really reach to God. If you know how to cook, you can absolutely know who is the cook in the universe. Because you can look at all this ready, God-cooked food and compare with your own food. This is my example, I never forget it, when I was cooking first time, really. So I learned that for the lentil soup, you have to do 4 to 1. The measure was like 4 cups of water for 1 cup of lentil. For the rice, is 1 to 2. But when it was my turn to cook it, I was cooking the rice and using the measure of the lentil soup. And then my rice turned out to be like soup. So I realized, yes, you have to have a knowledge, and you should not confuse them as well. Get right ingredients, right knowledge, then you can get what you want. So, but then now when you look at all other things, they are actually, the recipe there, the measurement there is much more delicate, much more complex. So you have knowledge of cooking that. So this is an example I did with my kids. I remember in US when they were little. So we get this strawberry plants, and I tried to make a lesson for them. We plant them, and we had a ceremony. We said Bismillah. We get the fertilizer. And they were very excited. Once it was over, I told them read the package, the bags of the fertilizer. They read it, and they were shocked. It was horse waste. And then they look at that. They say. And their first expression was PU, like that's the French, remember the kids use that? And they say, is it the things we're going to eat? Like, does this horse waste going to turn to strawberry we're going to eat? They say, yeah, actually, that's what's the source, right? Isn't it? We're going to put that. Then I said, take now this horse waste, go give it to your mom, and say, make a dessert for us. And use all of her skill and whatever. At that time, I think the internet was the very beginning. Could she make it? But then if she cannot make it, how come this plant could make it? So the plant doesn't have a brain, doesn't have an eyes, doesn't have a knowledge. Can this be the work of plants? So it's very obvious. It's neither the plant nor the animal waste is the source of strawberry. It's the divine mercy and power that's cooking and preparing strawberry for us. So again, as we're finishing, so the drawing one, let's say, this is the activity I actually, used to do with my kids as well. In the springtime, we'll go and collect different type of leaves, and then I will ask them to draw it and have them to compete. And once they do that, I say, okay, now whoever gets closer to the real one, they're going to get a prize. They will work very hard to imitate. But then after that, I ask them, now, which one is better, the real one or the one you draw it? What it takes for you to draw the one you have it? Or could you do it with closing your eyes? Could you do it with your feet, not with your hands? Could you do it if you, let's say, don't have a mind to think? Oh, then how about the real one? How can they come into existence? So essentially, you use the experiential knowledge, and then you go and from there reflect on what you find in the universe and understand who is behind that, who is doing that, okay? So I think that's all. We can stop it here. So again, the key part here was really to gain the knowledge of the self and then to look at the experience of the self as a means to understand how God is behind everything in the universe. Any questions or comments before we close? I know we have to go so that we can stop it here. So inshallah, tomorrow we're going to present some practical example of 5D, but I felt it's necessary to go through this because our analogical thinking is based on the understanding of the self. So tomorrow we'll give you a brief introduction of the model before we give an examples of how we use in the classroom setting. Okay?